President Donald Trump has essentially declared war on Americans. This was in his speech last night, and it really takes what is going on in the country to a completely other level. Watch.
I am mobilizing all available federal resources, civilian and military, to stop the rioting and looting, to end the destruction and arson, and to protect the rights of law-abiding Americans, including your Second Amendment rights. Therefore, the following measures are going into effect immediately. First, we are ending the riots and lawlessness that has spread throughout our country. We will end it now. Today, I have strongly recommended to every governor to deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers that we dominate the streets. Mayors and governors must establish an overwhelming law enforcement presence until the violence has been quelled. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them. I am also taking swift and decisive action to protect our great capital, Washington, D.C. What happened in this city last night was a total disgrace. As we speak, I am dispatching thousands and thousands of heavily armed soldiers, military personnel, and law enforcement officers to stop the rioting, looting, vandalism, assaults, and the wanton destruction of property. We are putting everybody on warning. Our 7 o'clock curfew will be strictly enforced. Those who threaten innocent life and property will be arrested, detained, and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I want the organizers of this terror to be on notice that you will face severe criminal penalties and lengthy sentences in jail. This includes Antifa and others who are leading instigators of this violence.
So, not only is the entire framing of the speech off, as we've seen, a lot of the instigating, a lot of the escalation has actually been done by the police in the streets during peaceful protests. There's tons of videos showing that, even videos showing police bringing bricks into these peaceful protests to try and instigate violence. But even apart from that, what Trump is doing here is a flagrant violation of free speech and is incredibly dangerous, saying we must dominate the streets with thousands of heavily armed soldiers, essentially declaring martial law here, shutting down peaceful protests across the country with the military. If this was happening in any other country, the U.S. government would come out and say, oh, this is horrible, we have to go invade. But here it is happening in America. But you may think, oh, he said he's an ally of the peaceful protesters. Didn't you hear him? He's an ally of peaceful protests. Yeah, okay. With the constant sound of helicopter blades overhead and a steady succession of bangs from nearby Lafayette Park, Trump declared himself an ally of peaceful protesters. But as he was speaking, peaceful protesters were being urgently dispersed outside the White House gates by police using rubber bullets, tear gas, and flashbangs. Several protesters were seen pouring water into their eyes to ease the gas's sting. So the idea that Trump is an ally of peaceful protesters, you know this is a guy that lies all the time. Even during this speech, he was showing how he was lying. And the timing of what was going on is also critical here. Reflecting on them, what's even more alarming is the context. The officers began their assault just after 6:30 p.m., less than half an hour before a 7 p.m. curfew that had already been ordered by the D.C. mayor that was set to take effect. Legally speaking, the crowd should have dispersed then, and there would have been no problem with the president strolling across the park to do his photo op at St. John's Church. Realistically, the odds are good that the crowd would not have dispersed, but starting at 7 p.m., a group of officers forcibly expelling protesters from the park would have been enforcing the law. Doing it at 6:36 p.m. or so served no real purpose except to make the law enforcement action flagrantly abusive, and that itself sends a powerful message. So here Trump is acting like, oh, I'm for the peaceful protests. I'm just against the rioters. Meanwhile, the cops right behind him, right beside him, are gassing and shooting peaceful protesters with rubber bullets. Now, this, as it was mentioned there, it was all for this stupid photo op afterwards, where here he is with the Bible. Yeah, sitting with the Bible there at St. John's Church. So it's almost like this was designed. I mean, not almost. This was designed as a way to eventually hit these protesters with this abusive force. Now, you may ask, can Trump actually do this? Can Trump actually send the military out there into these peaceful protests, even if the states don't want him to? Well, Kyle Kalinske touched on this, tweeting out, first of all, this obscure 1807 law Trump is citing is brazenly unconstitutional. Second of all, a plain-faced reading of it says the states have to tell him to send the military. He can't unilaterally do it. If the courts don't strike this down, there are zero checks and balances anymore. So, I don't think the law is going to stop Donald Trump. I mean, we are already seeing what he is capable of, what the military, what the police are capable of doing in the country against American citizens. So don't expect this to stop him. Now, the Democratic response. I mean, you have an opposition party, I guess, in the Democratic Party, supposedly an opposition party. What's their response to this? Here's Leader Nancy Pelosi, Leader of the House, coming out, holding a Bible, urging Trump to help the country heal. That's what Democratic leadership has to offer. I don't even know what to say anymore. This is the Democratic Party. They're not going to fight. For the past 40 years, really, they've shown no real fight on the side of Americans, for Americans. This is what they do. This basically is a single party system with two parties representing largely the same interests. But the media's on it, right? Oh, the media knows how to frame what's going on here. They really know how to inform people on what is happening. New York Times headline: as chaos spreads, Trump vows to end it now. This is not how you inform people about what is going on. Now, luckily, the New York Times is just one paper, and we are seeing, as I quoted earlier, CNN and Vox at least giving you a more objective analysis of what is happening. But to have the New York Times, which Trump hates, frame this entire event in his favor, as if he's the one putting an end to, this chaos around the country, I don't even know what to say. I think it's clear. If there's any hope of getting this guy out of office, you have to be engaged in that fight and make sure he gets out. This is just... it's as bad as people thought it might get. And it's important to absorb that, to understand that these are not just words. These are not just speeches. He's not just an idiot. This is dangerous behavior that will absolutely have an impact on the country for decades to come.